The Yamaha XV, also known as the Virago, is one of those bikes people simply can't stop modifying. Over the past 13 years, I've featured around 15 of them. Yes, that's quite a few. At this point, you'd think they'd all start to look the same. But no, not even close. Look carefully, and every single one goes in a completely different direction. Which can only mean one thing. This bike is ridiculously versatile. And today, we're doing it again. Because this is one of those that makes the others look like they didn't try hard enough. Welcome to Racertv. So, after seeing all the projects in the introduction, let me ask you this. Have you ever seen a Virago cafe racer like this? I'm fairly sure the answer is no, because I certainly haven't. And I've seen loads of them. This is the latest creation from Yuichi Yoshizawa, the man behind Custom Works Zon in Japan. You might remember him from these two projects I showed last year, which already tells you something important. He doesn't play it safe. Not even slightly. Every build is bold, daring, and just a little bit mad in the best possible way. But here's an interesting question. If you compare this Virago with the other two designs, can you spot the pattern? Because there's one detail that seems to define Yuichi's style. And no, I'm not talking about the paint or the bodywork or anything obvious. Look carefully at the seat position. In all three projects, the seat and rear cowl sit slightly lower than the fuel tank. Now, normally, this shouldn't work. Most cafe racers follow the same unwritten rule. Keep the rear line perfectly aligned with the bottom of the tank. Simple, safe, predictable. Yuichi, however, clearly looked at that rule and ignored it completely. And somehow, it works brilliantly. In fact, I'd say this is one of the most muscular Viragos I've ever seen. Everything about it feels strong, vigorous, purposeful. There isn't a single angle that looks weak or fragile. And next to the original version, this thing looks like it goes to the gym. Especially the rear tire, which looks as though it's been on steroids. In fact, it's one of the widest tires I've ever seen fitted to a Virago. And how did he manage to pull it off? Because fitting something this wide onto a Virago is anything but straightforward. But we'll get to that in a moment. To give you an idea of just how good this project is, imagine you're driving down the road and suddenly this thing appears in your rear view mirror. Your first thought would probably be, what on earth is that? And even after it passes you, you still won't know. Because the truth is, it's surprisingly difficult to tell this is actually a Yamaha Virago. And that's exactly what makes this project so interesting. Apart from the engine, almost everything that normally gives away the Virago's identity has been cleverly hidden. If you look closely, you'll notice that the original frame is barely visible, especially the central rear shock absorber. To disguise it, Yuichi created a completely new subframe, along with this beautiful rear section, hand-shaped from a single sheet of aluminium. The fuel tank was also handmade from polished aluminium, and its design takes inspiration from a classic Benelli and Norton Manx motorcycles. Now the rear section is clearly more modern, but somehow the lines flow together perfectly. Even though the tank and tail are physically separate pieces, they still feel connected, almost organic. And that level of balance is much harder to achieve than it looks. At the front, the massive inverted forks come straight from a Ducati Monster S4R. And frankly, they were an excellent choice. The top triple clamp was slightly modified to integrate the MotoGadget dashboard cleanly into the design, while the Brembo brakes are also borrowed from Ducati. But then, things get slightly strange. Because the headlight is inspired by the Harley-Davidson V-Rod, which means this motorcycle combines Japanese engineering, Italian aggression, and a little bit of American attitude. A combination that really shouldn't work, and yet somehow it absolutely does. Oh yes, that sounds completely irresponsible. I love it. And then there's the front fender, completely handmade from aluminium, of course, but look closely at the shape. It doesn't just protect the forks. It gives the entire front end an even stronger, more imposing presence. But none of this would work without these wonderfully oversized wheels from a BMWRnineT. And at this point, some of you are probably asking, how on earth did he fit that enormous rear wheel in there? Well, the answer is simple. A huge amount of work, a bit of engineering madness, and quite a lot of talent. The swing arm itself comes from a Ducati Monster S4R, but there was a problem, actually, several problems. The rear wheel on the Ducati is set quite far off-center, which meant Yuichi had to modify the swing arm geometry to work properly with the BMW hub. And just to make life even more complicated, the front and rear sections of the swing arm are made from cast aluminium, while the center and top sections use extruded aluminium, which in the welding world is roughly the equivalent of trying to convince cats and dogs to work together peacefully. In other words, not easy, but somehow Yuichi made it work. Of course, the chain alignment and sprocket setup also had to be carefully adjusted. And when you look at the final result, all that effort suddenly makes perfect sense. Overall, this project is seriously impressive, but at the same time, strangely predictable, because Yuichi Yoshizawa simply doesn't know how to build ordinary motorcycles. Thank you for watching Racertv. And as always, I hope to see you on the next video.